The great Walter Williams, African-American economist extraordinaire, gives us an idea about what your kids can expect on campus this year. You'd think that the warnings of a brilliant African-American economist and college professor would give progressive professors second thoughts. But as we know, you're only black to them if you toe that progressive party line. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Well, last week was Back to Public School Week. This is Back to Campus, our celebration of American children's, and that's what we're dealing with, return to college campuses. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we're going to take a look at a course at the University of Michigan that's being called Straightforward Political Indoctrination. Is that a course, or is that the entire College of Liberal Arts? A white psychology professor in Connecticut says he's been blinded by his white. He woke up like a deuce, another rotor in the night. The same professor said he would be perfectly okay with the demise of the entire white race. But we start with a study of 1,100 public and private universities across America that provides a startling look at what today's students will actually learn in college, absolutely supporting what Professor Williams has to say. It begins like this. For many parents, August is a month of both pride and tears, yet there's a going away to college question that far too few parents ask or even contemplate. Namely, what will my youngster learn in college? The American Council of Trustees and Alumni provides some answers that turn out to be quite disturbing. ACTA, as it's abbreviated, evaluated every four-year public university as well as hundreds of private colleges and universities. That's more than 1,100 institutions that enroll nearly 8 million American school kids and more than two-thirds of all students enrolled in four-year liberal arts college nationwide. ACTA's findings were published in their report, What Will They Learn in 2018-2019, and it doesn't look good, Katie.
Well, from personal experience, we know that when the kids go off to college, parents think, little Johnny and Susie, they're finally going to get to branch out and experience different classes and different things and learn, expand, and grow their mind. And really, we know, anyone who's been in the university system, know that this is not at all what happens. You know, if you think they're going to get this truly liberal arts education, as Walter Williams said, you are sadly mistaken. It turns out that less than half of the schools studied, so half of those 1,100, require courses in traditional literature, foreign language, U.S. government, or history and economics. At some of these colleges, students can fulfill that humanities requirement, and you can, being a humanities professor, understand what is happening here. That humanities requirement can get finished with a course titled Global X, Zombies. Or you could take a U.S. cultural pluralism requirement, can be fulfilled with the economics of, wait for it, Star Trek.
Yeah, and this is something I have been a big hobby horse of mine. I got a room full of hobby horses. I just hop from one to the other. This is a biggie, though. It's the degree to which the social sciences and the humanities have become Pangea, one big global continent of social justice. So it doesn't matter if you're studying Renaissance art history or sociological perspectives of sewing and seamstresses, or you're studying the history of vomit in the Middle Ages. Everything now has been superseded by the same social justice assumptions, right? Find the white dude and blame him, right? Find the woman and accuse her of and explain why she's a victim of the patriarchy. Find in medieval Europe, medieval English culture, it dawns on you that there were no blacks living there, surprise, and talk about how racist that was. It doesn't matter anymore, literally across the entirety of the humanities and the social sciences. And that includes everything from religious studies to English to philosophy to history, everything. Even to some degree, statistics and sociology now is geared towards promoting the same tired, liberal, progressive talking points.
Well, as we know, statistics somehow are patriarchal and, you know, white supremacy and all that other stuff.
Dude,
but
numbers,
they really are.
That's European colonialism and white supremacy.
It absolutely is. But here's the thing: if you look at it this way, basically any of these courses, they're Mad Libs. At this point, they are Mad Libs.
You got it.
So you can do a history of, and pick whatever you want. Apparently zombies, you can put Star Trek. I know Cardi B, the hip hop artist or whatever, she's being taught. Beyonce's being taught. There's history of, this one, comics. Just the history of comics.
Books, that's right.
There's game design for non-majors. There's all these courses, and it's Mad Libs. And so parents need to take a look at what their students are enrolled in. Just by course title alone, they're being very just open about it now. They don't even care to try and hide it and be subliminal about it.
Yeah, the gen ed programs have been completely hijacked. As somebody who is a teacher of the humanities and a great believer in what used to be called liberal education, that kids have to know a little bit about a lot of things, the general education programs at colleges and universities have completely been hijacked here. It's more important that kids understand the working of free markets or the working of the American experiment in government or the history of Western culture, which directly impacts what's going on in the world today, the language they use, the monuments they see, the buildings, the laws that we have, than it is to study Javanese rainforest, indigenous peoples culture, right? But what we've done here now is we've created a system where across the gen ed, doesn't matter what you take, you get the same narrow politics. Here's what progressives ought to do, and be honest about it. Get rid of the first 2 years of college altogether. Have the last 2 years of college where you focus on your major, and then have kids come to campus for one semester before they major in their major course of study, and give them a 5-day-a-week semester course for 8 hours a day on social justice. Just give it to them. Quit pretending that you care about Renaissance art history. Quit pretending that you care about any of this stuff. Bring them in for one semester, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, where all you do is drill left-wing progressivism into their head. That would accomplish everything you accomplish with 30 different courses for the gen ed. And one requirement, get it over with, and then let them major and be done with it. I think it would do less damage to kids if you did it that way, because then you get your stupid social justice out of the way, and you don't have to corrupt art history, you don't have to corrupt English literature, and you don't have to corrupt Greek philosophy. You just get it out of the way, and then let them get to work on their majors and charge them a lot less.
Yeah, well, because we know that's actually what's happening. It's just being spread out more and more over all the courses.
Costing more, yeah.
Exactly. So we want to give a shout out to the schools that actually got an A grade rating from ACTA. And that includes Pepperdine and Baylor University, and they are known for their commitment to the liberal arts and academic excellence. So at least there's some hope for a few out of the 1,100 universities.
Yeah, my niece goes to Baylor, and she had a mandatory art history class her first semester, and she came away from the course with one gem of wisdom, that graffiti is actually serious art and matters much more than traditional art does. That's what my niece learned in her art history class.
And then what did Uncle Duke say about that?
That is a censored conversation. I'm not going to go into it because they actually watched the show. But again, my point is that both and Pepperdine has had some problem. I remember Pepperdine was in a big brouhaha about replacing statues that offended kids. I think they had the Columbus statue, right? That they got rid of, I believe.
Everyone.
So even the so-called A-rated schools have their issues.
All right, one more thing. Just know that parents, you're still under the impression that kids should go to college. That's exactly what they do, and they all have to go to a 4-year because there's no way to success because that was drilled into your head. But they're youngsters, the actual kids that are coming up, they're actually thinking different. According to a TD Ameritrade study, 49% of young millennials said their degree was, quote, very or somewhat unimportant to their current job. Basically, it's like the lie. We all have to go to a 4-year university, then we get out and get our job and say, why did I just waste all my life?
Yes, exactly right. And the kids themselves, these undereducated, highly politicized young people, they realize that all these courses were meaningless. And who made them meaningless? The progressives. Speaking of which, this leads to a real-world example in our second story.
All right, the University of Michigan. Basically, we have a scholar who's saying that the course that is going to be taught is straightforward political indoctrination. And I agree. Now, there is a required seminar series at the University of Michigan, and this course is not actually required, but it can be used to fulfill the requirement they need to do. And it's called Social Justice, Identity, Diversity, and Community. I mean, just by that title, you can guess why Peter Wood, president of the National Association of Scholars, called the course straightforward political indoctrination. So Wood says that all 4 words in the title of the course are code for a political agenda that is smuggled into the curriculum as though it were a simple civics lesson. Will any of the students have the opportunity to read and consider writings by critics of the ideas of social justice or diversity? It is extremely unlikely.
And that's right. Social justice has become a way to critique without being critiqued. It's replaced feminism. For years in the American Academy, whenever you criticized feminism, that was proof that you were sexist. So feminism was allowed to deconstruct Western culture, but you couldn't criticize feminism. Now social justice has expanded that beyond feminism to all the fashionable left-wing boxes. As somebody who grew up in Ohio and an Ohio State fan, it's appropriately for me to insert the following. We don't give a damn for the whole state of Michigan, whole state of Michigan, whole state of Michigan. We don't give a damn for the whole state of Michigan. We're from Ohio. Sadly, I'm pretty sure it's not any better at Ohio State.
I'm just imagining you as a child singing that, because you probably
Marching
did.
around. I sang it, and I sang it with just the same quality timbre to my voice.
I bet you did.
That you were just provided.
All right, and just like in the last story where they aren't trying to hide what they're doing just on the title alone, well, look at the description of this great course. It says, this seminar will explore a wide range of issues on social justice, social identity, and intergroup relations, community, and everyday politics and democracy. It will examine the possibilities for building community across there it is. Race, gender, class, sexual orientation, and religion as students explore their own racial and other group identities. And then he asks a bunch of questions. That's it. Basically, if you look at the titles and the descriptions, these professors, they're just brazen with what they're putting out there because they are so proud of it. And this class is actually being taught. It's as a first-year seminar in sociology, so it's restricted to those people who are in their first year, or I guess sophomores you can do it too. But
I guarantee
get them
you,
right
this
away.
gets rid of your social science requirement.
Oh yeah, this puts them right through it. Yep.
And you've got a choice between taking a serious academic class and this BS. Note the intended audience. Quote from the syllabus: the intended audience, students from diverse backgrounds, are encouraged to enroll in the seminar.
Yes.
Right. So basically, boring white people need not apply.
Get out.
Get out. That's right. Because nothing represents diversity as excluding people. Because we're all white people, right? Whether you're Scandinavian or English or Canadian or Australia or New Guinean, right? No, I guess not New Guinean, but New Zealandish, whatever. Right? Everybody, all those radical diverse cultures, right? Somebody living in California, United States. Somebody living in Yorkshire, England. Somebody living in Sydney, Australia. Somebody living near the polar ice cap in Canada. We're all just the same boring white guys with the same boring white culture.
Exactly the same.
That's not diversity. But getting 24 Hispanic and African American kids in a room, all of whom grew up in America, all of whom had the same white bread American education, that's diversity.
Diverse. Also with this class, the requirements, all students are expected to participate actively in class discussions, read carefully, and write extensively. I want to know what they're writing extensively.
Unless you're not diverse.
Oh, yes, that.
What if you're one of the diverse dudes who signs up? Are you allowed to participate actively, or are you supposed to sit there and be lectured to?
But here's the best part that you love the most. Students will observe and participate in a number of engaging intergroup dialogue exercises and community-based activities, a.k.a. Barney Circles.
I love you. You love me. We're a great. That's my definition of this group work stuff. I cannot tell you how many highly educated university professors with 13 and 14 years of graduate school get into a classroom with 30 kids. And those kids know nothing about anything. They can barely wipe their noses. And the first thing the highly educated professor does is break them up into groups of 4 and 5 and kill a half an hour of class time that they're paying for, having them talk to each other. I guarantee you, when I have a Shakespeare class, if I put my kids in the Barney Circle, which I never do, you can attest to that, to have them talk to each other about Shakespeare is the biggest colossal waste of time. Hey, but I could sit up at the front of the classroom and do my grading while they're talking to each other about things they don't know.
Well, yours would have made a little bit more sense because you could be a character each character.
Theoretically,
and you could,
right?
Yeah, theoretically, it wouldn't have happened the way you wanted. But
to me, it's one of the underreported scandals of universities. How little teaching we do, right? As particularly the bigger the university, how little teaching professors do. But then when we do get into the classroom, how much class time do we spend not teaching kids? We call it creative pedagogy or independent learning. Look, if kids could learn independently, they didn't need teachers and professors, then why are they spending all this money going to your stupid colleges? The fact is that they need experts, particularly at the college level, and we're withholding those expertises from them, right? More and more at the big universities, TAs are doing all the coursework, graduate students are doing the teaching, right? And only the highly privileged kids in their senior seminars might get the great professor who spends half the time on Barney coursework, Barney circles, right? Barney coursework anyway. It's a complete and utter sham.
I have a little social science project for you this semester. Take your stopwatch, your cell phone, in every class record how much time you teach versus how much time Barney circles, which will be 0.
Right, exactly.
Oh, brilliant.
Exactly. And
I'll be your TA
the
for
kids get it too. I make
yeah.
a joke about it in class. You know how these Barney circles work. There are 5 kids in a group. One overachiever wearing glasses, or Argyle in this case, does all the note taking and does all the talking. Right. When it comes time to report back to the class, the one person does all the talking, and 4 kids spend their whole time talking about how totally drunk I got.
Well, the one was sleeping.
One was sleeping. Dude, I was so lit this weekend, dude. Right? This is what they waste their time doing. And these kids paying tens of thousands of dollars for these courses like it. They like it when they don't have to do anything. They like it when the teachers cancel class, when they blow off class. A lot of them like it when you put them in Barney circles because, again, they can count on the annoying Katies of the world to do all the work, and they can just sort of sit there and stare out the window. It is anti-education.
Yes. But I have a very important question for you. Are you blinded by your whiteness?
Blinded by the white.
All right. Well, Daniel Barrett is a psychology professor at Western Connecticut State University, and he claims he's actually blinded by his whiteness when he wrote an op-ed for the Good Men Project under the title "Race Traitor?" ? He said he's been blinded by his whiteness, and he is now a traitor to his race. And this article, if you're looking for it, has actually been taken down by the site itself, but we got an archive version. Don't you worry. That's what we're here for.
The internet is forever,
It
kids.
is forever.
Let that
All right. Here's the lead to his op-ed. I am a traitor to my race. If the white race were to slowly diminish in number and influence over time, eventually vanishing into the oblivion to which it has cast so many others, to be replaced with people who would be better stewards of the earth and more respectful of the rights of all humans, then I would welcome this.
The assumptions here, right? That white people and white people alone have caused people to vanish. That's white privilege. This idiot doesn't even realize that the only really white privilege he has is the privilege to demean an entire race and get away with it. If he had tried this with any other race, you could easily say of Africans or Native Americans or Chinese culture, how many tens of thousands have been eradicated by those cultures in various ways?
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't cause any opprobrium or shame.
No.
It's only the white race, right? And no mention at all of all the wicked things we do. The fact that how many non-white people across the country benefit? How many non-white people have been lifted out of slavery because of free markets? How many people across the world, lives have been enhanced by technology coming from America? Those evil white guys of Silicon Valley. How many people have been Western medical experiments? How many people have been alleviated? How many hot places have been alleviated from malaria by these pasty white? None of that stuff is even there. White privilege is the liberty to be racist about your own race without any cause or reflection on actual history.
Okay, well, hold tight because we have many more comments to make. He also says, I would be okay with the demise, parentheses, but not destruction, of, quote, my race. Yet I don't know what it means to be white or male or a U.S. citizen. I need others, capital O, others to tell me. Introspection is self-limiting.
So listen to this, right? That my own mind, my own education, my own PhD, they give me no ability to think about anything. Why is this guy a professor? Why, if he really was who he says he was, he should immediately withdraw his employment.
Well, he doesn't know what it means to be male either, so he doesn't know what it means to be he.
Because he's been told by his non-white betters that masculinity is just a construct.
Yes, okay, continuing. I am blinded by my whiteness and am unable to see myself for who I am, parentheses, not. Who I am not.
It's meaningless. This is utter and complete gibberish. He says here, whiteness has no intrinsic meaning, no import, no value. All right, you understand what he just said there? Substitute any other racial color for that, and you have got a raging hate crime, a 4-hour Viagra, go see a doctor hate crime is what you've got if you say that. But because he says it and see how cutesy this is, right? See how woke he is? By talking about how bad, and do you see what this guy does? This is what they all do, these liberal professors. Notice who the ultimate victim of whiteness is. Me. I look in my pants and I see a phallus, and I don't know what to make of that. And I look in a mirror and I see a lack of melanin, and I'm just confused by it all. Once again, liberals become gatekeepers. They become overseers by condemning themselves and their race. That's what indemnifies them. They then can go on. We've got people at every university I've ever taught at. There have been white women pasty white women teaching African American lit. And it never dawns on them in their colossal wokeness that that's a cultural appropriation. They'll tell you, they'll look you in the eye, and they'll get on your case for listening to rap music or for curling your hair a certain way, or, right, they'll get all over you for a cultural appropriation. But you pasty white women are going to teach white kids and black kids what it means to be apt to read African American lit. Hypocrites.
A lot of them tend to be from the northeast part of the country, whether
Yes,
they originate
do.
there, are still there, or they spread their
That's
wings across
right.
the nation. He goes on to say, whiteness has no nation, no culture, no essence. My whiteness is an accident of history and ought to be trivial, yet it reverberates through the fabric of my being and my consciousness, seemingly without limit.
But how does he know? How does he know?
Whiteness needs to go away.
How does he know it reverberates if he doesn't know what it is? How does it needs to go away, but it's ubiquitous, right? It's absolute part of my consciousness, seemingly without limit, but I haven't the vaguest idea what it means.
And it keeps going. I do not know the extent to which I have been advantaged, but it is clear that I have.
Clear how? But you've just described whiteness as a huge handicap. You've just described whiteness as the biggest evil ever to confront the world, and how have you benefited from it?
He's Daniel Barrett, psychology professor at Western Connecticut State University. That's what we're working with.
Yeah, you said, hey, Mom, you're sending your kids to Western Connecticut University. Please rethink that.
Well, that'll do for a Tuesday. As always, please share this episode and subscribe to the free audio podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. Visit drdukeshow.com. Subscribe for free by clicking on any of the platforms on the top of the screen so you too can be neato.
And that's it. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time for another episode of the Dr. Duke Show for Freedom Project. I'm Duke, the said doctor, exploring my whiteness, and she's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friend.